Magic Tea House, Book Number 55, A Merlin Mission, Night of the Ninth Dragon, by Mary Pope Osborne. Chapter 9, Fire Dragon. Jack followed Annie over the wet rocks to the waterfall. In the moonlight, he could barely make out a hollow space in the cliff behind it. "That looks like a cave," said Annie. "A cave that hides from sight behind a curtain of white," said Jack. "Yip, yip." Oki popped his head out of Jack's backpack. The little dog kept barking as Jack and Annie slipped behind the waterfall and made their way inside the cave. The air in the cramped cave smelled of wet rocks and mold. Jack had to bend down to keep his head from hitting the ceiling, and Oki tumbled out of his backpack. Before Jack could catch him, the puppy dashed off. "Oki!" cried Annie. "Yip, yip!" Oki's barking came from deep within the cave. "We're coming!" called Annie. She and Jack moved their hands along the cave wall to guide their way. As they followed the sound of Oki's barks and whines, the cave became more like a tunnel. The ceiling was so low that Annie and Jack had to get on their hands and knees and crawl in the blackness toward Oki's cries. Suddenly, Jack heard a flapping and squeaking off to the side. "Watch out for bats," he called. "Yikes, you think spiders could be in here too?" said Annie. "Probably yes," said Jack. "Oh no," said Annie. "Keep going," said Jack. "Just keep your head down." Close by, Oki yelped furiously. Jack felt around blindly for the puppy, but instead of fur, his hand touched a cold, smooth object. He quickly drew back, afraid he might have touched a snake or some other creature. "Gotcha!" said Annie. "I got Oki!" "Good," said Jack. "Hey, there's something else here," said Jack. "What?" said Jack. "It's heavy, but it feels like a plate," said Annie. "Actually, I felt something too," said Jack. He reached out and touched the cold object again. He picked it up and ran his fingers over it. "I think I found a goblet," he said. "I just found something else," said Annie. "Oh, wow. It's too heavy to lift with one hand." "Where is it?" said Jack, reaching toward the sound of Annie's voice. "Here," said Annie. She guided his hand to the object. When Jack tried to pick the object up, he almost dropped it. It was very heavy. Jack ran his fingers over its surface. "Is that a head? A snout?" he wondered. "Wings? Claws? Oh man, we found it," he whispered. "The dragon?" asked Annie. "Yes, I think so," said Jack. "Let's get it outside." "Okay, I'll carry Oki," said Annie. Jack stuffed the heavy object in his backpack. Crawling and then crouching, he and Annie made their way back through the cave until they came to the entrance. The waterfall showered them with spray as they climbed over the rocks to the ground. Jack set down his backpack and pulled out the object. In the moonlight, the ninth dragon was magnificent. Its golden wings were raised behind its back, and its eyes seemed to be gazing into the far-distant hills. "Your Majesties," Annie called, "we found the ninth dragon." She put Oki on the ground, and they all hurried to show Arthur and Guinevere the golden statue. But when they reached the cart, there was no sign of the king or queen. "Where are they?" said Jack. Oki yelped and dashed into the shadows. There they are, said Annie, pointing to a cluster of rocks. Guinevere was kneeling on the grass, holding Arthur in her arms. Oki whined and pawed the ground. We found it, Jack shouted as he and Annie ran to them. Jack placed the gold dragon statue next to Arthur. See, we found the 9th dragon, he said. But Arthur and Guinevere were both still. What's wrong? Said Annie. The king is dying, the queen said in a hollow voice. Oki let out a howl. He can't be, said Jack. Not now. What about the water, the healing water from Avalon? Wait, Jack ran to the cart and grabbed the leather flask and brought it back to the queen. There is no more, said Guinevere. Jack turned the leather flask upside down. Not a drop of healing water was left. Listen, said Annie. Jack heard a faint whinnying sound and the thunder of horse hooves. Peering across the moonlit moor, he saw riders in the distance galloping toward them. The robbers, said Guinevere. Oh no, said Annie. They're coming back for their treasure, said the queen. Jack started to tremble. The king was dying. The enemy was coming. There is no hope, Guinevere said softly. Jack took a deep breath. Yes, there is, he said. There's hope. There is, said Annie. Yes, we can save the king, said Jack. We can? Said Annie. Yes, we have to keep going, said Jack. The thundering of the horses' hooves grew louder. Keep going? How? Said Annie. We just have to keep going, said Jack. We have to do the next right thing. But what's that? What's the next right thing? Said Annie. I don't know, said Jack. Wait a minute, said Annie. I just remembered our stones from Caffel. Yes, said Jack. He and Annie reached into their pockets and pulled out the red stones. But what do we do with them? Jack said. We use them with hope and strength and imagination, said Annie. That's what Caffel told us to do. Jack clasped his stone. He stared at the dragon statue and tried to feel hopeful and strong and use his imagination. Long live King Arthur and Queen Guinevere, he said. Long live goodness and kindness, said Annie. And courage, said Jack. And patience, said Annie. And never giving up, said Jack. As Jack and Annie shouted their words, the gold dragon began to glow, as if it were lit from within. It glowed brighter and brighter and grew warmer and warmer. The statue glowed so brightly that it looked like it was on fire. Long live Camelot, said Jack, and Morgan's library and all the books. Long live the castle gardens and flowers, said Annie, and the great hall and music. Long live myths and legends, shouted Jack, from all times and places. Jack heard thunder, but it wasn't the thunder of horse hooves. Jack felt trembling, but it wasn't the trembling of his body. The rumbling and quaking came from the statue. The very air around the gold dragon quivered. Long live Morgan and Merlin and Teddy and Kathleen, shouted Jack. And all the knights and ladies and children and horses and oxen of Camelot, said Annie. Long live Annie, said Jack. Long live Jack, shouted Annie. And Oki. Hissing, cracking, screaming sounds rocked the night. A mighty explosion and a great blast shook the earth. With a thunderous roll, a billowing cloud erupted from the top of Munith Moor. The cloud burst into flame, and with a deafening roar, A gigantic fire-red dragon rose from the flames and seemed to spread its wings over the world. Chapter 10. All good. The dragon's eyes were flaming. Its horns and claws and scaly skin flashed in the moonlight. Its open bat-like wings began moving against the night sky, sweeping back and forth, back and forth. Jack, Annie, Oki, and Guinevere huddled with the king in the raging windstorm. In a flash of fire and smoke, a portal opened before them. Colors swirled, red, black, yellow, and green. Images from mythic realms of the otherworld passed by Jack's eyes. Flying stags, gossamer-winged fairies, one-eyed ice wizards, spider queens, raven kings, water horses, wolf shadows, sea serpents, snow giants, and fallen knights all flew by, ghostly and real at the same time. And then nothing. Nothing at all. Only darkness. Annie's voice broke through the black silence. "Jack, Jack," she said. Jack opened his eyes. He was sitting in soft, wet grass, still clasping the red stone Caphel had given him. Annie sat beside him, and Guinevere and Arthur lay nearby. Jack heard water splashing. It sounded as if fish were jumping, but when he sat up, he couldn't see anything through a golden mist that was rising from a lake. The breeze was soft and smelled of lavender and lilac. "What happened?" he said. "We were pulled into the portal, and it brought us to Avalon," said Annie. "Yep." Oki popped up beside her. "Right, Oki?" Annie asked. "I believe you are right," answered the queen. Jack and Annie turned around. Guinevere was sitting up, her golden hair tumbling around her shoulders. She looked dazed but happy. "How are you both?" she said. "I think we're good," said Annie. "All good," said Jack. He slipped the red stone back into his pocket. Guinevere smiled at them. Then she reached out and tenderly touched the king's shoulder. "Wake, my lord," she said. King Arthur opened his eyes and stared up at the pale sky. Oki scampered over the grass and licked the king's cheek. Arthur laughed softly and stroked the puppy's fur. "Where's the dragon?" said Jack. "You're sitting beside him," said Annie. Jack looked down and saw the gold statue shining in the dewy grass. When he wrapped his hand around it, the statue was still warm. "What about the giant living, breathing dragon?" he asked. "I don't know," said Annie. "Everyone saw a giant dragon, right?" said Jack. "It wasn't just me?" "Yes, I saw it," said Guinevere. "And I," said the king, sitting up. Arthur's voice was hoarse, but his eyes were clear. Color had returned to his face. "Oh, wow, Your Majesty! Are you going to be okay now?" asked Annie. The king took a deep breath. "Yes, Annie, I believe my wound has already begun to heal." "I'm really glad," Annie said. "Me too," said Jack. Suddenly, Oki let out a yelp. Then the puppy dashed to the shore of the lake and barked wildly. High, beautiful singing was coming from across the mist-covered water. "Who's singing?" Jack asked. "Mermaids," said the king. "Mermaids?" said Annie. Jack just smiled. In this changed new world, nothing seemed impossible. "Look," said Annie. Slowly, a cinnamon-colored boat with a white sail glided out of the haze. At the helm of the boat was a tall, bearded man in a blue robe. A small penguin stood beside him. "Merlin! Penny!" breathed Annie. She and Jack jumped up and ran to the edge of the water. When Merlin saw Jack and Annie, his eyes grew wide with astonishment. "Peep!" chirped Penny. Greetings, called Jack. Greetings indeed, said the magician. How on earth do you children come to be here in Avalon? Magic, said Annie. Merlin landed the small sailboat, and he and Penny came ashore. Oki rushed forward and nuzzled the baby penguin's fuzzy head. Penny flapped her wings and made squeaking sounds as if she was giggling. New friends, Guinevere said. Merlin cried out in amazement when he saw the king and queen walking toward him. Your Majesties, said the magician, what has happened? Why are you all here in Avalon? Soon after you left Camelot, word came of enemy forces in the east, said the king. As he began telling Merlin the story of the invaders, a snow-white unicorn pranced out of the golden haze. Teddy and Kathleen were on its back. Dianthus, Annie cried. Teddy, Kathleen. Hi, yelled Jack, and he and Annie ran away from the shore to greet their friends. Teddy and Kathleen shouted with wonder and joy when they saw Jack and Annie. The young enchanters jumped off the unicorn and threw their arms around them. Oki yapped and leapt joyfully around Dianthus. Hi, Dianthus, we missed you, said Annie. She lifted Oki up to the unicorn. Dianthus sniffed the puppy, and Oki licked him. Why have you come here? Asked Kathleen. King Arthur was wounded, said Jack. Wounded? Badly? Teddy asked. Yes, but he's better now, said Jack. See? They looked back at the king and queen, who were talking with Merlin near the lake. And we hope Morgan can make him even better, said Annie. That's why we came here. Where is Morgan? Asked Jack. Teddy peered into the mist. She's there, he said, pointing toward the water. Morgan Le Fay was emerging from the mist in a small boat pulled by a flock of swans. Morgan, look who's here, called Teddy. Jack and Annie waved at the enchantress. Hi, Morgan, Annie called. Morgan looked bewildered to see them. Her swan boat glided to the sandy beach, and she stepped ashore. How? Why? She said. Carrying Oki in her arms, Annie ran to Morgan. Jack followed. They told her the whole story, from Oki finding the tree house in the Frog Creek woods to coming to Avalon through the dragon's portal. Astonishing, said Morgan when they finished. And the king and queen are here too? Yes, there. Annie pointed farther down the shore, where Merlin was still talking with the royal couple. Morgan crossed to King Arthur. Welcome back to the Isle of Avalon, Your Majesty, she said. The king smiled and nodded. The enchantress gazed at him for a long moment, then put her hand on his chest and closed her eyes. Finally, she smiled and looked at him again. You will soon be completely healed, she said. But you and the queen must remain here for a short while until you are restored to your strongest self. Thank you, Morgan, said Guinevere. And Jack and Annie, may they stay in Avalon with us? I fear they must return to Camelot, said Merlin, stepping forward. Tonight will be the last night of the full moon. Before the sun rises on Camelot tomorrow, they must restore the gold dragon to its rightful place in the garden, or its power will be lost forever. But the dragon is not in its place now, said Teddy. So how can they return if we cannot? I imagine they will return in the same fashion that they have traveled here, said Morgan, with their own special magic. Oh, said Jack. He felt in his pocket for the piece of volcanic rock. With Cafel's stones? Morgan smiled and nodded. Yes, I am certain that the magic stones, along with your words of strength and hope, will again call forth the dragon's power to open the portal. When I see Cafel in Camelot, I will tell her of your courage. And I will tell her that you saved my life, King Arthur said. We shall be grateful to you both forever, said Queen Guinevere. Please tell my knights I will return soon, said King Arthur, and together we will restore the kingdom. Yes, your majesty, said Jack. It is time, said Merlin. Everyone grew quiet. Annie and Jack took their red stones from their pockets. Annie held Oki, and Jack picked up the heavy statue of the 9th dragon. Then with all his heart and all his good feelings for their friends, Jack whispered, Long live Camelot! Long live Camelot! Echoed Annie. Grasping their stones, Jack and Annie whispered these words over and over, with hope and strength, until the air crackled and a rushing wind bent the trees. Clouds billowed and spun into swirling white masses, then changed their colors from white to pink to red. And then from the churning crimson sky, the 9th dragon took shape and spread its great wings. In a rush of air and burst of light, Jack and Annie and Oki were lifted off the Isle of Avalon and returned to the castle of Camelot. Chapter 11. Back to the garden. Yep, said Oki. Wow, said Annie. Yes, said Jack. In the first light of dawn, he could see the tangles of vines and flowers, the fish pond, and the stone wall. They were back in Morgan Le Fay's secret garden. Oki leapt from Annie's arms and scurried among the patches of ivy, wild grasses, and shrubs, yapping and yipping at the dragons made of glass and granite, marble, clay, bronze, silver, and seashells. The 9th dragon goes behind those yellow rose bushes, said Annie. Right, said Jack. And let's leave Cafel's magic stones there too. Jack carefully placed the statue between the bushes and stone wall. Then he and Annie set Cafel's stones at its feet. The dragon glistened and shone as it caught the light of the rising sun. Goodbye, Jack whispered. Long live Camelot, said Annie. Yep, said Oki. Let's go, said Jack. And the three of them left Morgan's garden. They walked through the library and down the musty hallway, down the steep steps and through the rocky passage to the outer courtyard. Sir Lamorak and Sir Tristan were standing by the entrance gate. Hello, sirs, Annie called from behind them. The knights whirled around. When they saw Jack and Annie, they lowered their lances. How did you get inside? Stammered Sir Lamorak. Where are the king and queen? Said Sir Tristan. They're safe in Avalon, said Jack. What happened? Said Sir Lamorak. It's a long story, said Annie. But just know that the king will be completely well soon. And when he is, he and Guinevere will come back to the castle. And the king said to tell you that he'll work with his knights and all his subjects to restore order to the kingdom, said Jack. The two knights shook their heads in wonder. Bye for now, said Annie. Hold down the fort. Jack, Annie, and Oki headed out the castle entrance gate and started through the hayfield. They ran over the dry grass, then pushed their way through the tall wheat stalks, waving in the wind. From the field, they headed into the shadowy forest, and Oki led the way around the ancient oaks until they came to the magic treehouse. Let's go, buddy, said Jack. He lifted the puppy and put him into his pack. Then he and Annie headed up the rope ladder. When they climbed into the tea house, Annie grabbed the Pennsylvania book and pointed at a picture of Frog Creek. "I wish we could go there," she said. The wind started to blow. The tea house started to spin. It spun faster and faster. Then everything was still. Absolutely still. The day was cloudy and cool. No time had passed in the Frog Creek woods. The wind shook the tea leaves. "Yep," Okie popped his head out of Jack's pack. "We're home," said Annie. "Home, sweet home," said Jack. "Right, little buddy." "Yep." Jack climbed down the rope ladder, and Annie followed. Then they started through the Frog Creek woods. "Should we put Okie on the ground?" said Annie. "Nope, keep him in the pack," said Jack. "All the way to the dog park?" asked Annie. "Dog park? Are you serious?" said Jack. "You still want to go to the dog park? Aren't you worn out?" "No, not really," said Annie. "Really, not really?" said Jack. "Really, not really," said Annie. "But we did so much today," said Jack. "Not really," said Annie. "Okie just led us to the magic tea house. And then we took a little journey to Camelot's secret garden, met a blind seer, scared away robbers, hauled a broken cart across a moor, solved a riddle, explored a hidden cave, found a stolen statue, faced a dragon bigger than a mountain, landed on the Isle of Avalon, saw a unicorn, heard some mermaids, and used magic stones to take the gold dragon back to the garden to help the king and queen and our Camelot friends return to the castle. She shrugged. "And then we came home to Frog Creek." Jack nodded. "Okay, what you're saying is Okie just took us on a little detour on our way to the dog park." "That's what I'm saying," said Annie. "So, do you want to go there now?" "Sure, why not?" said Jack as they headed out of the woods. "And let's stop by the pet store." "Right, you want to buy a toothbrush and toothpaste for Okie's dental care," said Annie. "I do," said Jack. "Cool," said Annie. "You know what? I love our ordinary lives." "Me too," said Jack. "Long live Frog Creek."